Welcome back to Hollow Street. For those of you just joining us, this is a place where the ordinary peels back to reveal the unsettling. Tonight's story comes from the corner of Elm and Pine, a seemingly quiet intersection with a secret kept by the shadows. Our story is called Streetlight 13. They say every town has its own ghost story, its own little urban legend, whispered among kids after dark. In Hollow Street, we have more than our share. But the tale of Streetlight 13, in just a whisper. It's a warning, etched into the very concrete of our town. If you walk down Elm Street, you'll see it. 13 lampposts line the block. 12 of them cast a steady, unwavering amber glow. But the 13th, the one right on the corner, that one's different. It started with small things. People noticed at first, a flicker. Just a brief, almost imperceptible stutter in its light. Nothing too worrying about. Right, a faulty bulb, old wiring. The city would get to it eventually. But then, a pattern emerged. The flicker wasn't random. It happened at the same time, every single night, without fail. 1:13 a.m. on the dot. One sharp flicker, a momentary plunge into darkness, and then the light would return, as steady as its 12 siblings. It became a local quirk, a piece of trivia. Teenagers would dare each other to go watch it happen. Go stand under Streetlight 13 at 1:13, they'd say, laughing. It was a joke, until it wasn't. The first one to go was a kid named Leo. He was a daredevil, the kind of guy who'd do anything for a story. His friends told him not to. They'd all heard the whispers, the strange feeling you got standing near that lamppost till late at night. But Leo just laughed. It's a light bulb, guys. What's it gonna do? Electrocute me. So, one Tuesday night, he went. His friends, too scared to join him directly under the light, watched from across the street, filming on their phones. They were expecting to capture Leo jumping at the flicker, to have a funny video to share the next day. The clock on their phones ticked over. 1:12 a.m. Leo stood directly under the post, arms crossed, a smug grin on his face. He looked up at the light, as if challenging it. 1:13 a.m. The light flickered, just as it always did. A split second of total blackness. When the amber glow returned, Leo was gone, vanished. His friends screamed. They ran across the street, calling his name. There was nothing. Just an empty sidewalk under the steady, indifferent glow of Streetlight 13. At first, they thought it was a prank, that Leo had run off in that split second of darkness to scare them. They waited and waited. He never came back. The police were called. They searched everywhere. They questioned his friends, who tearfully showed them the video. The footage was grainy, but it was undeniable. One moment, Leo was there. The next, he was gone. The police were baffled. A missing persons case was opened, but there was one detail that they couldn't explain, something the friends only noticed the next morning in the harsh light of day. On the sidewalk, directly where Leo had been standing, there was a mark. A dark, scorched stain on the concrete. It was faint, but it was unmistakably the shape of a person. A silhouette, arms crossed, had tilted up towards the light. A shadow burned into the ground, a human-shaped scorch mark. Panic, quiet at first, began to spread through Hollow Street. The city sent a crew to inspect the lamppost. They ran diagnostics, checked the wiring, even replaced the bulb. Everything, they said, was perfectly normal. They couldn't explain the flicker, and they dismissed the scorched silhouette as a pre-existing stain, a trick of the light and overactive imaginations. They declared the lamppost safe. They were wrong. A few weeks later, it happened again. An elderly woman, Mrs. Gable, she was a known insomniac, often taking late-night walks to clear her head. Her family begged her to avoid Elm Street, but she was stubborn. Nonsense. She'd say, I've walked that street for 50 years. A little faulty electricity ain't going to scare me. A neighbor's security camera caught it. The timestamp read 1:12 a.m. Mrs. Gable is seen walking her small terrier, pausing right under Streetlight 13 to let the dog sniff a patch of grass. The dog seems agitated, pulling at the leash. Whining. Mrs. Gable tries to coax it along. The clock hits 1:13 a.m. The camera feed glitches for a second as the light flickers. When the image stabilizes, the leash lies limp on the sidewalk. Mrs. Gable is gone. Her little dog is running in panicked circles, barking at the empty space where she once stood. The next morning, the police returned, and next to the fading silhouette of Leo, a new one had appeared. The faint, scorched outline of a woman holding a leash. Now, no one called it a prank. The city council held emergency meetings. They couldn't explain it, and they couldn't stop it. They debated cutting power to the entire block, but the businesses protested. They considered tearing down the lamppost, but a strange, almost superstitious fear had taken hold. What if destroying it made things worse? In the end, they did the only thing they could think of. They put up signs. Yellow, cautionary signs with bold black letters. Danger. Do not stand in this area between 1:12 a.m. and 1:14 a.m. You'd think that would be enough, a clear warning. A documented history of people vanishing into thin air. But human curiosity, and sometimes human desperation, is a powerful thing. Enter a paranormal investigator named Alastair Finch. He heard the story of Hollow Street's vanishing lamppost and saw it not as a tragedy, but as the opportunity of a lifetime. He arrived in town with a van full of EMF meters, thermal cameras, and EVP recorders. He was going to be the one to solve the mystery. Alastair was methodical. He spent days interviewing witnesses, studying the police reports, analyzing the scorch marks. He set up his equipment all around the lamppost, creating a perimeter. He told the local sheriff he wasn't going to be reckless. He would observe from a safe distance. I'm just going to collect data, he promised. I won't go near it during the event. For 2 nights, he did just that. He sat in his van, screens glowing, and watched. At 1:13 a.m., his equipment went haywire. Needles spiked, static flooded his audio recorders, and the thermal camera showed a sudden, intense drop in temperature directly under the light, plunging to absolute zero for a fraction of a second. But he didn't capture an entity. No ghostly apparition, just a void, an absence. On the 3rd night, Alastair grew impatient. The data was fascinating, but it wasn't an answer. He decided he needed to get a sample. A reading from the epicenter. He had a theory. He believed it was a temporary, localized wormhole, a brief tear in space-time. He wasn't going to stand in it. Of course, he was a scientist. He devised a plan. He attached one of his most sensitive sensors to a long, insulated pole. He would extend the pole into the zone right before 1:13, get his reading, and pull it back, perfectly safe. The town sheriff, a man named Brody, who had seen too much, tried to stop him. Son, some things are better left alone. We don't know what that thing is. Alastair just smiled. Knowledge is never a thing to be left alone, Sheriff. This could change our understanding of physics. As 1:12 a.m. approached, Alastair put on his headlamp and walked towards the lamppost. Sheriff Brody watched from his patrol car, his hand resting on his radio, a pit in his stomach. Alastair carefully positioned himself just outside the invisible boundary of the scorch marks. He held the long pole, the sensor dangling from the end. He took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on his watch. 1:12 and 50 seconds. He began to extend the pole, pushing the sensor into the space directly beneath the light. 1:12 and 55 seconds. The sensor was in position, hovering a few feet above the silhouette of Mrs. Gable. 1:13 a.m. The light flickered. Darkness, a gut-wrenching, silent scream seemed to echo in Brody's mind, though he heard nothing. The light returned. Alastair Finch was gone. The pole he was holding lay on the ground, snapped in half as if by an incredible force. And on the pavement, his silhouette was seared into the concrete, overlapping the others. The shape of a man holding a long pole, forever reaching for an answer he would never find. After Alastair, the street became a dead zone after midnight. The city finally barricaded the entire corner. No one goes down Elm Street at night anymore if they can help it. The story of Streetlight 13 is no longer a legend, it's a landmark, a tombstone. Sometimes, new people move to town. They see the barricades and the warning signs and they ask what happened. We tell them, we show them the sidewalk. On a clear day, you can still see them. The faint, dark shadows burned onto the ground. The daredevil, the old woman, the investigator. 3 human-shaped stains, huddled together under the cold, watchful eye of Streetlight 13. And every night, at 1:13 a.m., the light flickers, a momentary blink, a silent invitation. A reminder that in Hollow Street, some shadows are not cast by the light, but are all that the light leaves behind. It's waiting for the next curious soul, the next skeptic, the next person who thinks the rules don't apply to them, waiting to add another shadow to its collection. Thank you for listening to this episode of Hollow Street. The question is, what would you do? Would you heed the warnings? Or would the temptation to understand be too strong to resist? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into the unsettling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, so you never miss a story from the darkest corners of our town. Stay safe, and whatever you do, watch out for flickering lights.